#1 killer of women over the age of 25. 1 in 3 women, unfortunately, will die from some form of cardiovascular disease, with 1 woman dying every minute in this country. So as you can imagine, I'm really pleased that we have decided to continue the good fight and help empower women, raise awareness, and give them the tools that they need to identify not only the warning signs of heart attack and stroke, but also what they can do in their lifestyle to improve their chances of living a longer, stronger, healthier life. So next slide, please. Are you able to advance the slide for me, Shannon? Thank you so much. So as I mentioned, a woman dies every minute in this country, taking nearly 400,000 women every year. And one of the main reasons that women are dying is that they're not recognizing the warning signs, which sometimes can be very different from men. Although men have a lot of the symptoms and signs that women do, oftentimes survivors have shared that there are unique red flags to look for women specifically. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the other thing that we know from our science, because everything we do is based on science and the brightest and best young scientists in the world that we fund to continue our good work, is that women tend to be amazing caregivers, right? We're so good at caring about everyone in our life, our children, our spouses, our parents, our neighbors, our friends, our pets, but sometimes we neglect and ignore the warning signs that we are receiving from our bodies that would be indicators that we need immediate medical attention. Next slide, please. So as you can see, heart disease is taking more women than all forms of cancer combined. There is a misconception that cancers like breast cancer are the #1 killers, where breast cancer actually takes 1 in 8 women in this country. Heart disease takes 1 of 3 women in this country. So I'm especially passionate about this because in the year 2000, I actually lost a dear friend and co-worker at the American Heart Association. She was only 34 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was a ray of light. Her name was Karen Ryle. And sadly, she was being misdiagnosed because she was a young female. She wasn't recognizing warning signs. She didn't really ask the questions about her family history. And the doctors that were taking care of her were not looking at heart disease as something that a young woman at the age of 34 would have. So sadly, I lost Karen on my birthday in the year 2000, and I dedicate my work every day to her. It took a long time for me to come to terms with losing Karen, but I jump out of bed every day with a lot of ambition and energy. And, I feel like no one should ever die at age 34. Karen never had a chance to get married or have babies or do any of the things that she used to dream about with me every day. Shannon, like you and Jen, we were in a very small office. So, she was family to me. And so when I lost her, it really made me realize how important the mission of the American Heart and Stroke Association is, and how important the work we do in raising awareness with women. And I don't know if we've got any men on the line, but every man has a woman in his life that he loves, a mother, a sister, a friend, a daughter, and a coworker. So, we really want men to also understand the warning signs as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we talked about the 1 in 3 women passing from heart disease. And, we started this really great campaign this year called One is Too Many. And I really like that. That really hit home for me, knowing that losing 1 woman especially someone like my friend Karen that passed at 34, is too many. So, we're asking you maybe to share some information that you used today, maybe to look at the website of the Heart Association at heart.org or our goredforwomen.org and take some information with you, share it with a family, friend, coworker. We want to help raise awareness and empower individuals to not only recognize the warning signs, but to maybe take one action that could make a life-saving difference. Maybe it's visiting a doctor to get a checkup. Maybe it's researching your family history. Maybe it's getting more physical activity or eating a healthier diet, cutting out the tobacco, right? Or managing stress in a healthy way. Next slide, please. So since 2004, we have proudly distributed 25 million of our red dress pins and stickers. And, this is our way to raise awareness. And so if you don't have a red dress pin, I'm happy to supply those for you today or send those to our friends Shannon and Jen so that they can get those to you. But, we want you to wear those. We want people to talk about it. We want people to ask you, hey, what does the pin mean? With the pin comes the warning signs of a heart attack and stroke, and we're going to review those now. So for both men and women, there could be that what we call typical or classic movie type symptom, that crushing chest pain, the elephant or the ton of bricks was sitting on my chest and that pressure was coming and going. That is our classic symptom and more often experienced by men, but sometimes by women. But a lot of the women who are survivors have told me they never had any chest pain or pressure at all. Secondly, that other symptom of the arm, right? The aching arm, the pain in the jaw, in the neck area. Again, many, many times men experience these symptoms, women do not. They never have had any of those arm, neck, or jaw pains that we hear about, but it sometimes does happen. So the final big symptom that we hear so much about are those flu-like symptoms, the sweating, the nausea, right? Something doesn't feel right. It feels like I might be coming down with the flu, extreme fatigue, right? So many of the women who are survivors have actually said those were the more typical symptoms that they had experienced, which is one of the reasons that we are alarmed because, clearly there are similarities between the onset symptoms for women, of a heart attack and flu. So I don't want you to think every time you've got the flu that you're having a heart attack. But what we do want you to think about are three key things. Do you know your family history? Are you managing your numbers? And we'll talk about that in a minute. And finally, do you know the warning signs of a heart attack? If you understand that you have a strong family history and perhaps you're not controlling your numbers would be your blood pressure, cholesterol, BMI, and your fasting glucose, right? Knowledge is power, my friends. So your blood pressure, for example, unmanaged high blood pressure, that hypertension is what we call the silent killer. We want you to know your numbers. We want you to understand that 120/80 is that healthy guideline from the American Heart Association. But not only that, we want you to be on medications or reduce the sodium in your diet if you need to do so. If your doctor has you on medications, it's incredibly important that you stay on those meds and don't cut them in half, skip them, stop taking them without talking to a doctor first. With high blood pressure, you could have extremely high blood pressure and there might not be any symptoms at all. That is why we call high blood pressure or unmanaged high blood pressure the silent killer. So knowing your numbers is critically important. In addition to that, we want you to get an accurate reading. So things like knowing the best practices about blood pressure measurement, having 2 feet firmly placed on the floor, having an empty bladder, not having a conversation with your healthcare professional while you're getting your reading are all the best practice ways that you can get the most accurate reading so that you know how you can manage your health. And if you need to talk further about medication therapy and or diet and lifestyle adjustments. The other thing that we want to think about it with our knowing our numbers are things like cholesterol, our fasting glucose, right? And certainly our BMI, our body mass index, right? The American Heart and Stroke Association recommends a BMI of anything 25 or under. So if you know, and it becomes more challenging as we age gracefully, right, to manage that number. But there are things that you can do. And I'm so proud of the resources that we have, such as food label reading tools, free recipes, and other and phenomenal ways that you can find a support system online through our heart.org or goredforwomen.org websites. So take advantage of that, because that truly is part of our give back to you. And there's never a cost to download those resources, as well as the resources about, you know, knowing your numbers and what those numbers mean. So be sure that you're also seeing your doctor at least every year, right? And having an honest conversation with them about what your numbers mean, how to manage them, how to improve your numbers, and certainly discuss your family history as well. All of those things will give you the power to live a longer, stronger, healthier life. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of, you know, good news here, and there's some, you know, things that we want to, that we have some work we need to do. So clearly we know that more women now than ever before know the warning signs, know about the Red Dress campaign, right? And are taking an action. And I'm so proud of how our organization in the last, you know, 15 years or so have really proactively targeted the audience of women specifically to try to help women understand what their risks are, right? But we've got a lot of work to do, especially post-pandemic, because of the stress, particularly on the households, particularly young females with families at home right now that are perhaps working full-time and having children at home that are homeschooling. We know that there is a heightened concern with regard to some work that we're going to need to do post-pandemic. So we know that less people are seeing doctors right now. They're afraid to go in to a hospital or a physician office. So we've got our Don't Die of Doubt campaigns with the hospitals that we're working with them to try to raise awareness and make people feel comfortable that calling 911 is always the right thing to do. In addition, we want women to know the warning signs of stroke. Stroke and heart disease do not discriminate. I've worked with people as young as 16 years old that have had a stroke, and many women in their early 20s, 30s, and 40s over the last several years. So I want you to think about these warning signs, know them, and always call 911 in the event of an emergency. So with stroke, the FAST acronym, I love it. It's really easy and clever way for us to think about the warning signs for stroke in women and in men. So the F in FAST is for face. Many times with the first onset symptoms of a stroke, individuals will experience muscle indifference in their faces, and many times will not be able to smile or make other facial gestures. So really that crooked smile would be an indicator of an onset of a stroke. A is for arm, asking your friend, neighbor, or loved one to lift both arms to see if they can do that. If they can't, because of the way the stroke affects the brain, if one arm is not able to be lifted, at least all the way, or even partially, then that is a warning sign of an onset of stroke. Speech, S is for speech. So asking them to repeat simple phrases like the sky is blue or my name is Gina. Oftentimes during a stroke event, the individual will open their mouth and they may not be able to say anything. Their tongue may be loose, but they won't be able to get the words out, right? So that is, again, a warning sign of a stroke. That severe headache, right? The worst headache I've ever had in my life. Again, warning sign of a stroke. And then finally, T is for time. So we know with stroke especially that there is a miracle drug that's available in the first 3-hour window of the event of a stroke that can actually reverse the damage. So it's critically important in the event of a stroke that you note the onset time of symptoms so that you can share that with the healthcare professionals that treat your loved ones, because if they fall within that window, then they may be eligible for that miracle drug. However, the last thing we want them to do is sleep it off. I'll go in the morning, or drive themselves to the hospital. We always want you to make sure that you call 911 in the event of an emergency. So as you can see here, we're making some progress. We've had declines in things like cholesterol. We've had one of our largest areas where we've had our largest win in this country. We've got some more work to do in Northwest Pennsylvania, but is adult smoking. Adult smoking is down significantly in some areas, as much as 40% decrease in adult smoking. However, big tobacco has been really clever with things like vaping and e-cigarettes. So I want you to do your homework, friends, because that's big tobacco's hook for the next generation. And they've been very clever with that campaign and the misleading undertones of that campaign as well. For example, those bubblegum flavored mechanisms and the campaign that this is a healthier choice over regular tobacco. So if you've got children and grandchildren, any young people in your life, talk to them and encourage them to live a tobacco-free life. Tobacco for heart disease and stroke is our number one best defense, right? Tobacco free lifestyle is our number one best defense in the fight against heart disease and stroke. So the good news today is that 80% of cardiovascular disease is preventable. Knowing your numbers, getting enough sleep, exercise, a great nutrition, following the American Heart Association's Life Simple 7 are 7 areas of focus that we want you to think about. And then also just partnering with other organizations. We're so blessed to be able to partner with Blue Zones, who really their goals align so beautifully with ours in empowering the community to make healthier decisions, to know the warning signs, and to live a longer, stronger, healthier life. Next slide, please. So I just want to make sure that you know about the resources available to you. Again, our Go Red for Women. This is my favorite month. This is Heart Month. Our Go Red for Women campaign is, again, something very near and dear to me. And of course, our heart.org, HEART.org, is wonderful. It has information on there about CPR training and, all of those areas, including our My Life Check assessment, which is a free health assessment with about 10 questions that will give you a heart score to show your risk and show you how to improve your numbers moving forward. So that's what I have for you today. Does anyone have any specific questions for me about the Heart Association, our Go Red for Women campaign, or the warning signs of heart disease and stroke?
Gina, what is that drug that if you had the symptoms in a certain amount of time, what is it that they would give you?
TPA, yep. And I forget I've only ever referred to it as TPA, but a neurologist would be able to tell you what that stands for. But if you just Google TPA, you'll see an array of information that will come up about it, and that critical 3-hour window. Certainly there are different types of stroke, right? And every individual has different reactions to treatment. So, you know, I would say the vast majority of individuals are eligible, but certainly there are folks that you know, wouldn't be eligible for that treatment. We want to prevent that stroke altogether, right? We want you to not smoke. We want you to manage your numbers, take your blood pressure medication, right? And stay on it. Listen to your doctor. Those are the kinds of things that can help you reduce your risk of a cardiovascular or brain event. And again, I encourage you all, especially this month, to visit heart.org, because we've got a lot of great and new information, and everything that we share is based on science. Yes.
Oh, Gina, I was just going to say,
not
a question, but a comment. You know, prior to Blue Zones Project, you know, I was a nurse in cardiac rehab, and I will tell you, probably one of the most common things I heard for any type of heart disease, whether people had a heart attack or they needed stents or they needed to have bypass surgery, was that fatigue and chronic tiredness. All of a sudden they're just, but they got confused with the aging process. They thought, oh, I'm just getting older, I don't have as much energy, but that fatigue and tiredness was really a common factor.
It's interesting that you say that. My boyfriend's mom, who had open heart surgery last year, was like this super spunky, you know, lady. She'd jump out of bed and garden, or, you know, she was putzing around the house all the time, and all of a sudden, extreme fatigue. Like she couldn't even get out of bed. Yeah. She would get out of bed just long enough to maybe make something to eat and go back to bed. And the stairs became a real big issue for her as well. Mm-hmm. She just couldn't even make it up a flight of stairs without stopping for a break. You're absolutely right. That extreme fatigue seems to be a very big indicator. And unfortunately, you're right. She was like, oh, I'm getting older now, you know, and, you know, I didn't sleep well last night. There's an array of reasons that she, you know, really thought. But the more I got to know her and the deeper the conversations became with her, her family history is incredible. She lost her father at a massive heart attack at age 39.
Ooh, wow.
But she didn't share that until after her open heart surgery, right? So knowing that family history is critical too, because that will help you identify those early onset symptoms and be more aware, be more mindful of your risk.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm so glad she's still here with us. But, you know, and I credit so much the work of, you know, the Heart Association and the countless scientists and doctors that really, you know, medicine and therapy and treatments are changing at the light of speed. Today, tomorrow, a treatment may become available. It's really fascinating. Precision medicine especially is really fascinating. So we're very blessed to live in a time where we have access to so many resources. I think about Shirley, you know, his mom's generation, you know, she really didn't have the access to this information. And even my grandmother, who was a smoker, because that was a sexy thing to do, right? And they had no idea. I mean, because Hollywood and magazines glamorized cigarettes. And so my grandmother passed away from emphysema, and it's such a sad thing because I think we would probably still have her today had she not been a cigarette smoker. So, you know, we are very blessed that we have things like the internet, you know, an instant, almost that instant gratification of updates regarding health. And I remember when she was first starting to feel sick, she would go to like this book, you know, it was like Women's Health or something. It had all this dust on it. That's how they got their information. Like they would go to a book, which was the information inside was years old. Mm-hmm. So we truly are blessed in this day and age. And, you know, again, I'm a huge fan of the knowledge is power. You know, how much information can you learn, particularly if you have that strong family history? Because our new research says that if you have a healthy lifestyle and take your medications, you can beat the odds, right? It isn't all gloom and doom if you have that family history. You just need to know what you need to do. What are those things you do now that ensure that you live another 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? So thank you all so much for having me today. Happy Heart Month. My challenge is to you to find one thing that you can do, whether it's a positive mindset, getting more rest tonight, taking a walk after dinner, cutting back a little bit on that sugar, maybe cutting out that extra lump of sugar in your coffee. What is that one thing you can do? Because I don't want you to be overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, Gina just said I've got to do these 7 things. And that can become, a little bit overwhelming. So find one thing, right, that you can do that will make a huge difference in your life. I promise you, if you own that one thing this week, you'll notice a difference and you'll live a longer life.
And everyone too, thank you for Gina, like presenting, all our presenters this week are allowing us to record them. And so if you feel someone can benefit from hearing Gina's talk or to this one and or the one tomorrow and any of our talks, Shannon will be posting the links for the recordings next week on our Facebook page.
Thank you, Gina. That was
wonderful.
Oh my gosh. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Gina.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, ladies. Have a great day.
All right.
Take
Thank
care
you,
of your
Gina.
hearts.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.